Right. So I think we'll talk about Orange Cassidy's favourite show. Then, Carl, if you could go through Dynamite.
Yeah. So this week, we already knew ahead of time that Cody was going to be on commentary. So it opens this week with Cody and Omega with Tony Schiavone. Cody's there basically saying he's about to leave to open the show because he's actually first match of the night. So definitely pulling multiple duties. And yeah, it was a really solid match. Once again, we see backstage that they are continuing to gamble. This time it's Jericho, Billy Gunn, Austin Gunn, who's Billy's son, and a couple of other guys there as well. I think Sean Spears was one of them. So continuing to bet on the action. And all in all, it was pretty decent match.
Yeah, it's nice because I don't correct me if I'm wrong, but you don't often see Jimmy Havoc on the main show either, so it's nice to see him in there.
Yeah, so like he's being used very sparingly, but he's got a very unique style, I think, and it was definitely a clash of styles.
Oh, not the Styles Clash.
Styles class, yeah. There's definitely a mix of styles there, but all in all, it did lead towards a pretty decent match. I think every match Cody has is always pretty decent, to be fair. So a nice way to kick off Dynamite. Before basically as soon as the match is over, Cody picks up the win. We get a Jake Roberts promo. So this one was much better than the previous weeks, but effectively he was saying AEW was formed. It was meant to be the biggest and best thing going and something different. But Jake's phone never rang, and he's one of the best minds in the business. And Lance Archer wasn't contacted. Is it because Cody was scared?
I mean, to be fair to Jake, he was never rang because they probably weren't sure what state he was in. He's only very recently got clean.
This is very true, very true. But yeah, so I think it's an interesting angle that they're coming to it from, is basically they're both feeling like they're overlooked. Jake has been very clear that he thinks Cody is more like Caesar. So he wants Caesar to bring all his people and his whole entourage, whoever it takes, to just sit down with them and give him, something to sign so that it actually Cody versus Lance Archer will become official. Then once Cody gets back into commentary, interesting route really, but he said, Lance Archer's great. He's done really good things in Japan, but he absolutely has no body of work over in the States. So if he comes to AEW, then he's got to start somewhere, and that's not going to be with him. So interesting.
That's an interesting approach for someone who went and did a lot in New Japan himself. And
well, exactly.
Most of all, Elite made it big in New Japan. Very interesting comment to make.
So very interesting, but he basically says that he can debut next week if he wants on Dynamite, and have a match then, but it's not going to be with him. So yeah, I don't know where it's going to go, but they are obviously building up to him being Cody's next opponent. I don't know whether they've had to kind of change gears a little bit with Blood and Guts getting cancelled. So maybe they're kind of going a little different slant with it.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it is difficult for them because they've had to cancel that match, and that was one of their sort of big setups. So it's quite reactive at the moment, isn't it? What they're having to do and change. And you can probably feel it a little bit, but I still maintain they're handling it a lot better than WWE are.
Yeah, definitely. It feels like a much more cohesive show, and even if they are changing things on the fly, they're not just resorting to things like video packages or throwing things together that don't make sense. Everything still feels somewhat organic, and they're not just kind of going like dropping the storyline now. They're just kind of pivoting a little bit, so it is good to see.
Yeah. The one thing I will give them is I'll give WWE is that AEW haven't really got a body of work to replay. So I don't know if they're maybe not showing replays of old matches because they haven't got any or because they don't want to. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of out of necessity that they're doing something different to WWE, whereas WWE can go, do you remember this great match? So yeah, I don't know if maybe they would rely more on previous footage if they had more previous footage,
Yeah, potentially. It's a good point, actually. Very good point. Next on the card was we had a Darby Allin video package, so just some more character development work there, I think, for him. So obviously he's done the creepy little flashcard thing, and then this time he had some creepy little pictures with eyes cut out and weird things like that. But basically saying that he's known bad people and gotten too close to them in the past, and he's had to learn a few lessons the hard way. But tonight he's fighting Kip Sabian, and ultimately he's just a sacrifice for the sins of the inner circle tonight. And yeah,
probably about right for Kip.
Yeah. So the match itself was fine. I think it was another really good showing from Darby Allin. I think I've already said as long as he stays grounded in his kind of personal life and stuff like that, I think he's got a good future in AEW. He's really kind of looking like a bit of a future star there, and I think it was a very good compliment from Cody on commentary. He kind of compared him to a young Sting, which is it's a very good compliment to give.
Oh yeah, definitely. And yeah, I can see a lot of potential in him. I think you're hitting the nail on the head there that he needs to keep straight in his personal life. I believe he's is destructive the right word? Like he's mentioned that wrestling sort of helped him, and he's done more dangerous things in the skateboarding world and all this. And it's like I don't know if he's ever had substance issues or whichever, but he sort of alludes to the fact that wrestling sort of is focus and drive for a reason. Do you know what I mean? I don't know much about his history, but I feel like you say, he does need to keep his head screwed on, and he's got that sort of that edge to him,
Yeah, definitely. I think he's been one of the standouts for a brand new roster that people don't really know. Like a lot of people have kind of gravitated towards him, so hopefully he'll continue to kind of grow and shine going forward.
Yeah, definitely.
The next, Jake Hager had a squash match. I don't know what it was this week, but they absolutely loved a fucking squash match with their jobbers, whether it was WWE or AEW. But
I know, it's like they all got together and said, "Should we squash some jobbers?"
Exactly. So I mean, like I said, I don't know whether WWE were doing it to give any indie workers a chance to get paid, but I think AEW definitely were. It's something that
I believe Evil Uno has actually been quoted in some capacity as saying that he was deliberately pulling people in to their stuff to give them a bit of work and a bit of money, because he knows the independents are tough. He's been there. Do you know what I mean? Bit of a character break that, really, but yeah, I believe it's been sort of almost pointed out. Funnily enough, within that sort of twatty comments from Braun Strowman last week, it's sort of come up from there. So yeah, I think you're right. I think AEW are definitely doing it to sort of help out the indies.
Yeah. Well, whoever this guy was got absolutely squashed by Jake Hager. And then after the match, he got attacked by Jon Moxley. So Moxley comes out and hits the paradigm shift on Jake Hager, and on commentary they basically they kind of sold it well, saying, "Oh God, like nobody gets up from that." And then all of a sudden, Hager kind of a little bit Undertaker-esque kind of sits up and reaches for the ankle and starts to apply the ankle lock on Moxley. And then Moxley manages to get out of the way, and then basically it cuts to backstage, and Moxley says, Hager managed to walk away tonight, but when it comes to a head-to-head for the title, he's going to get carried out on a stretcher or he'll die trying. So it seems a really fucking weird angle to now. I'm guessing Jake Hager versus Moxley is the new push for the title. I'm not sure how I feel about it.
That, actually, yeah. I like Hager, don't get me wrong. He's so much better than he was put across in WWE with the lisp and all that, I don't know, he can't help the lisp, but they sort of tried to sort of poke fun at it in WWE, which is, sort of what they go to when it comes to gimmicks, really. But yeah, I think he's doing well in AEW, but I don't know if he should be in the title scene just yet. It feels a bit premature.
Yeah, I think that's exactly how it feels. It also, I don't know how they would explain, because he's still part of the inner circle, and Jericho's only just lost it. So how are they going to explain suddenly Hager's going for the title and not Jericho?
That's the thing, yeah. It's like, well, yeah. I don't know if they do rematches, but you thought Jericho would be trying to pitch for a rematch as well. If someone from the inner circle is going to go for it, you think he'd try and pitch for a rematch, wouldn't you?
Yeah, so I'm not too sure how I feel about it, but it's definitely a surprising direction, shall we say?
Oh yeah.
Because I didn't have him in mind next for Moxley.
No, I'd agree with you there.
And then the next segment was Brody Lee. So cuts to the back, and he can be seen eating some steak, some very raw steak by the looks of it. He's talking about how.
Oh, I get it. He's poking fun at Raw, isn't he?
Talking about the Dark Order brings strength in numbers. Just kind of this big speech about how they're kind of the lions of AEW now and they should do what they want. Then one of the other members who he's talking to at the dinner table goes to eat their food, and then Brody Lee screams at him, throws him out. He sits back down saying, can you believe that? You need to wait till I finished eating. Then the other guy next to him sneezes, and he goes absolutely fucking ballistic and throws him out as well. Now, I don't think it's, I think it's pretty common knowledge by now that Vince McMahon's a fucking loon. And he's got some very, very kooky character traits, and these things that Brody was doing are basically poking fun at Vince McMahon. So Vince hates people that sneeze and hates it when he himself sneezes because he hates being out of control. So if he does a sneeze, he gets really fucking pissed off and angry because it's involuntary. So yeah, he's a fucking weirdo. So that was point.
That was a definite shot. That's a definite shot.
And apparently when after they shoot like Raw or like wherever it is and they go out for food afterwards, Vince always has to eat first and no one else can start eating until he's at, which is again, it's just fucking bizarre.
Yeah.
But that's true. That's Vince McMahon. But yeah, so basically this was just an absolute character assassination of Vince McMahon on AEW. But apparently Vince was fucking furious about it. So serious shots fired there. He's got a massive ego, as we know. So for them to be taking the piss out of him, they really hit their target by the sounds of it.
Yeah. It's interesting though that he's furious because like, what are you gonna do exactly? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
He can't control another company unless he tries to fucking buy it.
Well, I mean, he can't. He gets angry when he fucking can't control a sneeze. So God knows how angry he is when he can't control what another company's saying about him.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, no, definite shots fired. What I don't want is for them to be popping too many shots at WWE. I think they can stand on their own. I don't think they need to lower themselves to that. I get it makes a bit of sense organically for Brody to want to fire a couple of shots at them because of his history with WWE, but I hope they don't keep doing that. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind the odd joke here and there, but I hope they don't keep a focus on mocking them subtly.
Well, that's it. I wasn't expecting this kind of direction for the Exalted One. When they were talking about this kind of figure who was, I got a lot more kind of spooky, kind of culty vibes, but like the way he's coming across is almost like, I don't know, like a fucking weird rich leader, because he's basically trying to copy Vince McMahon. So I don't know. Those segments that he's been doing don't necessarily tie up with the character that I thought we were getting. But that being said, after this promo, Brody Lee had his first official match, so he took on QT Marshall, and that one was another kind of squash match. And it did the job. It definitely built up Brody Lee. But after the match, QT Marshall was kind of sprawled out on the floor, and Evil Uno comes out as well, and they leave one of the Dark Order masks on QT's stomach.
Right.
So basically, they're still recruiting. So
Yeah.
even though it's been a bit strange, I think with the vignettes and stuff that they've been doing, not necessarily feeling very culty, then it is very clear that they are still kind of going down a cult gimmick.
Yeah, I think they're trying to adjust it without being too on the nose, because I think they know the Dark Order stuff before Brody Lee wasn't being very well received. I think they are very aware. I think you've mentioned that before with AEW that they're very aware of the product. So I think they might be, rather than trying to be too on the nose and go, well, we're totally changing what it is, they're trying to sort of almost change it subtly. So they're going, well, yeah, it's a cult, and they're still doing the recruiting thing, and they're still a cult, but it's not like a spooky paranormal kind of thing. It's like this guy is a very much a cult leader. He's a bit of a lunatic, and he gets people on side. So I think they're trying to organically move it to he's brainwashing people essentially, and rules with force, typically funnily enough of actual like cult lead. Like if you look at the Manson family and stuff like that, you go, well, yeah, they are kind of, egomaniacs and a bit forceful, and so you go, well, yeah, maybe they're trying to push it to an actual more realistic cult rather than this whole paranormal thing they were doing before it,
No, it's a good shout. I mean, if anyone's going to know, whether they do listen to fans and the direction, it will be our special guest today. I don't know, Orange, have you got anything to add on that particular kind of segment or the change in the Dark Order?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
not what I expected of him, honest, Orange, but yeah, you make a point.
Yeah, I didn't think that was going to be the case at all. So, wow.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously you've got the insight. You're there. You're backstage with everyone. It makes a bit of sense,
Yeah, and I think that's probably an exclusive for this podcast. So anyone listening, you
Yeah,
heard it here first.
yeah, we do
Um,
appreciate that. Yeah.
yeah. So then the next segment was we had our special correspondent Vanguard giving an update on the condition of Nick Jackson. So give me kind of Terminator vibes this, but basically Vanguard flew over to fucking some crazy place basically.
Oh, it was Rancho Cucamonga.
That's the one, Rancho Cucamonga. And basically you see Nick Jackson in there kind of working out and stuff, and with a live tracker of his on his recovery. So he looks to be at 61% recovered to be exact at the moment. So yeah, Nick comes out and sees Vanguard looking at him, and yeah, basically Vanguard has to retreat. Otherwise, I think he might have got hit with a broom potentially. So, but it
His
was a
only
good
weakness.
update. And then we went on to our kind of main event in terms of the matches for the evening. It was actually a championship match. So Kenny Omega was defending his AAA heavyweight championship against Sammy Guevara. So I think got to say about this, it was an absolutely excellent match. You've got one of the best in the world in Kenny Omega versus one of the best up and comers out there in Sammy Guevara, and this just went to show that he is growing kind of day by day. To be honest, I think when I first saw Sammy on the first episode of Dynamite that they ever aired, he was incredible, and I'm not saying he hasn't been, or his matches haven't been as good since then, but I feel like this match kind of reminded me of the first time I saw him. It was like one of his real kind of standout matches. So I think his in ring work is still continuing to develop and grow, and he's doing a fantastic job. But also his character gimmick, his character work's doing good. So obviously we had him singing Judas, which was a really good breakout moment for him. But
Yeah.
this week we had little caricature cartoons in the audience, and one of which was Brandy. And midway through the match, Sammy Guevara decides to rip that caricature off the chair and, starts to make out with it, tongue and all.
Nice.
So, yeah, much to the disgust of Brandy. But to be fair, we did have Cody on commentary through all this, and he didn't seem to mention it. So you would
That's
think
weird.
he'd be a little bit pissed off.
Yeah, just ignore it. It'll go away.
So, yeah, but like the match itself was just fantastic. Kenny Omega's amazing, and he didn't really dominate the match. Guevara kind of dominated throughout, really. So Kenny did a really good job of putting him over, but obviously he ended up picking the win in the end and retaining the AAA championship. And I think it's no surprise. I don't think the belt was going to be changing hands in AEW, especially not outside Mexico. But they did a good job of still making you believe that the match could go either way.
I think that's probably legitimately the only criticism I'd have of the match, is that putting a title on the line seemed a bit pointless when it's very, very, very unlikely that it was going to change hands on AEW. That could have been a shock result, but it just wasn't going to happen, and we all knew it wasn't going to happen. But that being said, if you take the title out of it, which for me they could have done, it was still a really good match, and it was a very enjoyable match. And like you say, we just got to see more of the Spanish God, and he's very good. He's definitely a future talent. I mean, he's a talent now, to be fair, but he's definitely got a good career ahead of him.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think he's another one, probably even more so than Darby. To be fair, like I can see him going, like the three biggest future talents that I can see, who are current talents as well, is Darby Allin, MJF, and then Sammy Guevara. Like them three have got such a big, bright future.
Oh yeah, definitely.
To be honest, MJF didn't feature this week on Dynamite that I saw anyway, so it felt like it was quite a big hole in the programming for me.
Yeah, I wonder if it, like, I don't know what the motivation is around that, or whether in terms of the staffing or whichever, whether they needed to feature other people, so numbers wise he couldn't be there. But like you say, his absence was noticed.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then so that was our main event in terms of matches. But the actual closing to the show was Chris Jericho coming out to the ring. Obviously his kick-ass theme music plays, and then this time he decides to take the camera off the cameraman and film the cameraman singing and dancing to his entrance theme, which
Nice.
is the most Jericho thing ever. So I thought that was like a nice little funny little touch. But he gets in the ring and he basically says that he's going to let Matt join the inner circle. He realizes that he's made a mistake, but he's going to help him make the right decision. Then out of nowhere, Vanguard appears, and in one of the most fucking baffling, crazy things ever, Jericho then says he doesn't like him, doesn't like what he stands for. He thinks he's arrogant. He disagrees with his political views on social media. And ultimately, he thinks he's a piece of shit. Meanwhile, he's talking to a fucking drone. So, yeah, crazy. But that being said, he offers him a chance to join the inner circle, of which obviously Vanguard flies away and rejects it. There was then, if that wasn't crazy enough, then Matt Hardy appears again, like he does, on the balcony, and then he begins to teleport throughout the arena into different seats in the audience. So 1 minute he's on the top row, the next minute he's like on the middle row. He's basically teleporting everywhere, and then he finally manages to make his way into the ring. There's a little interesting tidbit on that. I saw a video from Jericho. He basically said that they pulled that together literally 30 minutes before it aired. It was like one of the only bits that didn't air live, and like he helped. It was his idea. He basically helped produce it and everything. Took it to the production trucks and pulled it all together. So he said he thought it was brilliant. But yeah, it was definitely unique, should we say? But
Yeah, but it's that sort of thing where they're using the situation to do something unique, because you couldn't do that in front of a live audience. But it was nice to have a bit of a play with the arena, knowing the situation they're in, and they can try and do something a bit more creative. It's good fun.
Well, that's it. And it definitely was something that I've never seen before. So yeah, it was definitely interesting. But Matt kind of makes his way into the ring. He says he's here to resurrect his career, and then that's when Jericho says that's what he does. He has resurrected the career of Jake Hager and all the other guys in the inner circle, and he's going to give Matt a mulligan as they play in the sport of golf. And then basically says he asks him to join the inner circle. Hardy basically says no, he's going to delete Jericho. So then Jericho tries to basically slap the weird out of him and slaps him in the face, of which Hardy then retaliates with a punch. And Jericho says, wow, he has got powers if he's able to knock down the champion with one punch, but he's got powers too. Then all of a sudden, Sammy Guevara appears and beats down Matt. And then obviously Cody and Omega come out to make the save. And so Jericho and Guevara retreat. And then Hardy uses his powers to set off some flames on the entrance.
Nice.
So
Nice.
all in all, it's a fucking mental little segment that they've pulled together there. It's one of them. I didn't dislike it at all. I wasn't crazy about it either, but it was just different. I think I didn't necessarily feel strongly either way. I thought some of it was good, some of it was a bit like okay, but all in all, yeah, it was fine.
It's gonna sound like an odd comment to make, but I'm not really into the broken thing, but I want to be.
Yeah.
Like, I want to get what people see in it. I really want to enjoy it, but when you see it in action, like it was here, I'm still very much like, just
Yeah. I think I said last week, it's a good gimmick. I do really like it, but I don't want them to go the way of TNA, where it kind of takes over the show. And I feel like it did take over a little bit at the back end of this show where it was just maybe a little bit too out there. I think the entrance stuff would have been fine, but like you've got the weird entrance, you've got the Vanguard stuff, you've got Matt Hardy controlling flames, and it's just like, I don't know, maybe it's a little bit too much. But that being said, it's a lot more entertaining to see Matt Hardy doing this kind of shit than getting his head caved in with a steel chair on Raw for no reason. So
Well, yeah.
I just don't want Dynamite as a whole to kind of suffer consistently. I think I'd like to give them the benefit of the doubt that they made, considering the situation, they've made use of an empty arena to do something, a bit kooky and unique. And like I said, I don't think it was bad. I just, I don't want it to become a really regular thing where it feels always kooky as opposed to like interesting.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that.
So yeah, that was Dynamite.
Yeah.
So I think from my perspective, taking it all into account, I think I've given it a 3. I was toying between a 2.5 and a 3, and I think ultimately I gave NXT a 2.5 in the end, and I did enjoy Dynamite more than I did NXT. So that being said, I didn't think it was one of the strongest episodes of Dynamite, not by a long stretch. As you know, I've given them a 5 in the past, so a 3 for me is a substandard episode, I would say, of Dynamite. But considering it was still a good show, I was still entertained.
Awesome. I'm very much in the same boat. I give it a 3. It wasn't the strongest episode. Some of the bits again I didn't get, but all in all, there's some excellent matches there, some excellent work going on there. And yeah, it was a good episode, not a great episode. So I'm firmly with you on a 3 there.
Nice.
Now, Orange, do you want to offer a rating, or are you going to sort of abstain from this one with being a little bit biased towards your own product?
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I can respect that.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, we'll go with that then.